leads, opportunities, and the pursuit of work. And then you can classify and qualify reviewing data of win percentage and what you think the opportunity is going to be. If we've pitched to this same real estate company 10 times and we've never been successful, is there things that we can do to tweak to be successful, or do we spend our energy somewhere else?
Welcome to RevOps Champions, a podcast designed for revenue professionals looking to advance sales and marketing initiatives through the role of RevOps within their organizations. In each episode, we feature leaders who are leveraging technology to drive operational efficiency, revenue, and improve the customer experience. Listen in and learn how to become a better RevOps leader within your own organization. Let's get started.
I'm beyond excited to have with us today Bob Gardner, founder and CEO of Gardner Builders. Bob, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brendon.
Bob, so we might bounce around a little bit today. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation last week. And you, again, were very congruent with what I've been hearing from a lot of the guests on RevOps Champions so far, that it really comes down to the people. And I'm sure we'll be touching on that throughout the next sort of half an hour to 45 minutes. But before I start to be true to, what RevOps Champions is all about, I want to ask you the question from your perspective and the perspective of Gardner Builders. How do you define revenue operations in your business, or as we call it, RevOps?
RevOps to us is essentially building blocks. It's the foundation of how we go to market, and that those building blocks are the things, so processes, people, lead generation, things like that are how do you get to the market, and then how do you gain revenue share? And so from our perspective, everyone in the company has a role in RevOps.
Awesome. I love that. And then the sort of follow-up question to that is RevOps important to your business? And I'm of course, when I ask that question, I'm hoping that it's the same reason that it's important to every other business. But in your words, why do you think RevOps is important to Gardner Builders?
Well, I think RevOps is important because it gives you a toolkit from where to operate. And for us, I'm sure we're going to get there, but for us, like you said, it does start with the people. And if you start with the people and you give them a place that they enjoy to come to work and they love the work that they're doing, then the revenue, the profitability, all of that will follow.
I love that. In fact, since we chatted last week, I haven't been able to get the quote that you mentioned to me out of my mind as we were going through the conversation and talking about the significance of people in every organization, which is the famous Maya Angelou quote, "It's not what you say or do, it's how you make people feel." And I can totally see that that's how you live your life. And I can see that that's one of the reasons that Gardner Builders has been such a successful business. And I look forward to digging into that more as we go.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Bob, you've had an amazing success, and you'd probably say you're still getting started, but you're growing Gardner Builders over the past 12 years. But I'm sure it hasn't always been easy. So what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome over the years?
Wow, that's a great question. I believe probably the single biggest is you know how to build. If you're a builder, you know how to build. You start a company, there's so many nuanced things that come to running a company that you try and surround yourself with people who are good at the things that you're not good at. Even when you surround yourself with amazing professionals, you can still hit pitfalls. And early on in our business, maybe 3 years in, we weren't charging for everything that we were doing, which then led to us being substantially high six figures in the hole at the end of the year, at the end of year 3, after having not taken a paycheck for 3 years. And so we joke about the founder's journey being romanticized, but it's really hard to run a business. And when you don't understand all the pieces and parts, and you have somebody that you think understands all the pieces and parts, and maybe we miss some stuff, then it wakes you up pretty quickly. I think I was listening to another podcast earlier this week that said you have to literally go both feet in and behave as if your kids and your house and everything else are relying on you. And so you're 100% committed. Like, you can't have your foot in some other system to try and bring money in the door. So it's be committed, jump in and rally the team. So we made, in that situation, we brought in a pal and we did a deep dive assessment and really peeled apart. We were winning great work. We were negotiating great work. We just weren't charging enough for the work that we were doing. And it's things that clients will pay for. So we basically tweaked a few dials and focused on the right metrics and really just turned our business around big time.
Awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned metrics right at the end there, which, as I was chatting with you last week, we were talking about how we think about RevOps and essentially how we help businesses put RevOps into action in their businesses as a new go-to-market model. So the four components are, and we've already, of course, talked about the first one. Number one is people. Number two is processes. Number three is data, which, of course, and data is what are the critical metrics at the highest level of the organization that you just touched on. And then, of course, those metrics you break down, sales, marketing, etc. And then, of course, the last one is your technology, the technology systems that you're using to efficiently do all those other things. And then, of course, in using the RevOps model, it's aligning all of those. And essentially what RevOps, like most things that are invented, came out of necessity. And RevOps was really created to break down the things that weren't working, which is typically the silos that happen. For example, the most common one, the most notorious one is the silos between sales teams and marketing teams. If you do a RevOps strategy, it does away with that. And then the other most common one is silos in technology, with software or systems that each team across the operations of the company are running on. If they're siloed and not integrated, again, you become super inefficient. And at the end of the day, your customers actually start to feel that, which is why one of the biggest benefits and one of the main reasons that so many businesses are hopping on the RevOps train right now is because customer experience is such a critical component. Then, of course, the other thing you talked about is, I forget who said it, and I'm sure there have been thousands of entrepreneurs who've said this over time, where to the outside world it looks like an overnight success, right? And what the people who see the success haven't seen are the years and the thousands of hours of blood, sweat, tears, and of course, as you say, not knowing if you're going to be able to make payroll. Those are the kinds of things that go into the final success. So thanks for sharing that. When you and I talked last week, you shared with me that your three differentiators at Gardner Builders, and this I found really interesting, are culture, which again is that people component, relationships, which again is about people, and technology. The common themes shared by other great guests that we've had on the podcast so far have not surprisingly been very similar. And when we reviewed the episodes that we've done a few weeks ago, it came down to three things: people, alignment, and then embracing technology. And the last one, embracing technology, of course, is the alternative is trying to avoid using technology. You shared with me when we were talking about that, how that came about is in 2010, the iPad had just been launched, and that became a sort of a differentiator for you. What are some of the technology opportunities you see today, now that we're sort of 10 or 12 down the line, to stay ahead of the industry, both from an internal operating efficiency perspective and or a customer experience perspective?
Sure. I love the question. I think when you start a business and there are established and incumbent businesses that are already in that space, you have to create this differentiator, and how do you show up in a different way? And so for us, it was putting our technology face forward. So when we started the company, every file that we had, every product that we had, every piece of technology that we had was based in the cloud. And so as a tangent, but a side note to when the pandemic happened, we didn't skip a beat. But since 2010, we have put together a toolkit of technology that has tried to shine the light on allowing it to be simpler for us to do business and easier for us to do business with our clients. There's nothing worse than having a team that's frustrated with the technology that sits in front of them, because then it's wasted energy and frustration, and that's not how we want to go to market with our team. On the question of what does the future hold, I think what's interesting is when technology is one of your uniques, it can be a double-edged sword, right? Because you go out and you figure out what's the newest and greatest and fun technology, but then as we're figuring all this out, we're learning as we go, and you realize that you have maybe too many different solutions that if you come back together, you could maybe and quite possibly refine that to be a simpler, more elegant solution that still checks all the boxes of the things that you need to do to deliver a project and to show up with a client. And so a recent internal audit, just we have so many different software systems that we use, and there may be a way to consolidate some of those to be more efficient, right? The other thing I would say is, and you mentioned it in the 4 things that RevOps is data, and we've all seen, or maybe most of us have seen or heard about Moneyball. Data analytics changed the way that baseball teams play their game. It's changing the way football teams play the game. Construction has been slow to adopt new technologies because you have an aging workforce and folks that are just, they've been doing it this way for 35 years. We look at it as an opportunity to say, we're not still using the rotary phone that we used 45 years ago, because if we were, we would be missing a whole lot of opportunity. And so create a company that is constantly trying to reinvent the way that it uses technology. That becomes a differentiator. So data analytics, one of the things that we're looking at and trying to get better at is actually evaluating how we interact as a team. And so if we put a project manager and a superintendent and a project coordinator together, if we look at the data over time, we may see trends that say, you know what, those 3 are pretty good together, but we need to shore up this or this or this. And maybe if we swapped out this piece of skill set where we put a project coordinator who fills in the gaps of the project manager and superintendent, then maybe that project runs more smoothly. And so you get this opportunity to iterate and evaluate the data. And so I think that's where some of it's going in construction. I think the other thing that you look at is leads, opportunities, and the pursuit of work. And then you can classify and qualify reviewing data of win percentage and what you think the opportunity is going to be. If we've pitched to this same real estate company 10 times and we've never been successful, is there things that we can do to tweak to be successful, or do we spend our energy somewhere else? And I think technology is going to help us do that better as we progress.
Yeah, I love the way you kind of wove those two, technology and data together as you were saying that, because, again, they are so inextricably linked. It's very difficult to decipher what your data is if you don't have the technology to do it. And that's one thing, I guess, Bob, we didn't talk about in our initial conversation because we just got so carried away on the people component. But so one of the things, you mentioned 3 things I'd like to sort of pick up on there. The first one was team frustration. And I think you were kind of coming at it from, if they don't have the tools, which when I say tools, obviously in our space, it means the technology tools, not
right.
The tools that you're using to build all these incredible buildings that you do and renovating all these incredible buildings like the one that we're in now. What a lot of business owners who might not be aware of this RevOps model, so that the 3 main benefits of the RevOps go-to-market model are, as we've already said, customer experience is number 1. Number 2 is employee experience or employee happiness, without which you cannot have a good customer experience. And this is kind of where you're touching on this, which is if your team feels frustrated every day with not having the right tools, your customers are going to feel that. Right. And coming back to the data component, if you don't have, and then you talked about technology, what we call technology bloat, right? Where you have
right.
bought the last 17 shiny objects, and then suddenly someone, typically the CFO or the financial person, is like, We're paying like all these thousands of dollars every year for all the software subscriptions. Are we actually using any of them? Which of course is a big part of what we do. And actually we didn't even talk about this either, but so we created a tool last year called RevOpsScore.com, which allows people or business leaders to go in and assess the different parts of their RevOps in their business to figure out where they have the biggest gaps or opportunities to fix. And one of those things, in fact, is technology bloat, as we call it. And then the other one is the integration of technology, which of course leads to clean data. So someone shared with me recently the statistic that I hadn't heard before, and I'm not sure exactly how accurate it is, but as I've been thinking about it for the last couple of months, it makes a lot of sense. And what he said to me was that leadership, 90% of leadership is decision making. And if you don't have the data at your fingertips to make fast decisions, what are you losing? What are you losing out on? What opportunities, if you have to wait for a week or two to get a report on whatever the data is that you need to make that decision? That, today, in today's world, there's no reason for every business to have all their data visible and available in real time in one dashboard, or as what we call the single source of truth. So,
right.
So every business has to have, and I know we're doing some work with you on this too, but every business needs to have all the data flowing into one dashboard where if you need a report on something, it's available right now. You don't have to ask Susie or whoever it is to go down into a hole for 2 weeks and create these reports and collect data from all these different places.
Is the data up to date, right? Or have you entered your data into the cell this week so that the rest of us can see what's accurate?
Right. And, one of the things, there have been some like funny videos and things on YouTube and social media put out by CRM software companies, which of course, we completely love and agree with, where, for example, if salespeople aren't putting their data, which is who they're speaking with and what calls they have, and et cetera, if they're not putting it into the CRM, then no one's going to know about it. And you hear more and more companies today, well, if the data is not in the CRM, you don't get paid your commission, right? So the accountability, of course, that comes with all these tools is a critical part. But like you say, when you have people who've been around the workforce for many years, that's often a tough transition to make.
Right.
But again, it's where we all need to get to if we want to, stay competitive. But yeah, so it just, there was a lot of good stuff in that one answer, which we could dig into for hours. So thanks for that insight.
Certainly.
And then, so I guess on that note, so the next question, I guess, was, Bob, for you would be, have you found a way at Gardner Builders to integrate your client-facing technology or tech stack, as we call it, to help your team run the business more efficiently? Yeah,
and for us, it starts with a software product called Procore. Mm-hmm. And Procore is essentially, it's the playbook to running projects. So it's all of your data, your budgets are in there, your drawings, or requests for information, submittals of product types. And so that's the starting point, and it is the source of truth. And then that data flows externally, but we have clients that log in. And one of our uniques is we do as you've seen, a daily log on every project every single day, so that we give you a status update so you're not sitting there wondering what happened on the project today. And that comes through Procore as well. And it's just it's more FYI rather than CYA. It's more of a, here you go. You should know that we're making progress on your project and you should be excited about it. Absolutely. Yeah, what it all comes down to at the end of the day is communication, right? And I guess we've all, as technology has evolved and continued to accelerate at sort of exponential rates, it almost seems like we expect communication to be available whenever we want it, right? So, which again comes back to, whatever the data is that we need to sort of make the next decision or to just satisfy our curiosity. But we've all become so used to the fact that we can get the communication that we need. And of course, whenever we get into a situation where we suddenly feel like we're not getting that communication, it becomes very frustrating very, very quickly. Right. Cool. And then, so Bob, I'd like to come back to the culture component for a minute.
it really hit me, like I said, when we spoke last week about, and you mentioned the Maya Angelou quote, it's not what you say or do, it's how you make people feel. And then you shared with me, I guess, more sort of closer to home at Gardner Builders, what you think has been the success. And again, your financial success has been tremendous. But it's so interesting because I've heard this over and over again, that sort of your culture code, as it were, around your people, is that people need to feel valued, they need to feel challenged, and they need to feel excited to come to work. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess what you're saying is that is the secret to pretty much everything that you've succeeded in over the last 10 years.
For sure. And I think the way that I put it, and I appreciate you remembering and repeating, but the way that I put it to our team is, I didn't like the place I worked previously, and so when I left to start Gardner Builders, and it's been refined, but when I left, I wanted to create a place where I would love to work and other people would love to work as well. And that has become refined to, we only have one goal, and that one goal is that we provide a place where people come to work and they feel valued for who they are intrinsically. They feel challenged with the work that we give them in a good way so that they want to go back and they have a thirst to do more of it, that we provide an environment where they love to come to work, whether that's in the office or in the field or on an airplane traveling to a new project. We provide that environment for them. And then if we get that right, that's a great place to start. And as we talked about last week, when your employees feel energized around the work and feel valued and they know that we believe in them, well, then they bring good energy home. And we hope everyone has a different thing going on at home, but we hope they bring great energy back to work. And then they, in turn, bring that energy to the work that we're doing on behalf of our clients who hire us and pay us. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping that up as our focal point. But when you have great people who are energized to do the work, there's this ecosystem of the people that are doing the work, from trade partners to design partners to incumbent vendors who are in and out of the projects with clients all the time. If we engage with them in a human way, right, and treat them as the humans and professionals that they are, then we're going to do great work together. And, we started out saying, construction gets a bad rap. We're a bunch of yellers and screamers. They don't plan the work accordingly. They get frustrated and they'll tell you that they're going to do one thing and then they don't do it. So we always say, do what you say you're going to do. We're not yellers and screamers. The professionals that we're surrounded by are really good at what they do, and so we need to embrace that and figure out a way to carve a path forward together and do great work.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense, right? But it still seems to be a tough thing for so many businesses to get right. But you can see it doesn't matter which of these best places to work things you follow. I think if you dissected all of these and dropped them all into some sort of an artificial intelligence tool to find what the commonalities are amongst all these successful companies at every level. So for example, as you know, with the work that we're doing with Gardner Builders, our core software partner is HubSpot, who just, I guess, maybe 4 weeks ago, Glassdoor announced the best companies in the country to work for, and HubSpot was number 2 in the country for large companies. I believe number 1 was NVIDIA, which of course is a massive global company. And when you look at what HubSpot's core values do, which of course is, and that's what I do as a CEO, is I'm always looking at companies that are getting it right. What are they doing? And how can we improve those things here at Dynamico? And HubSpot, when you look at HubSpot's culture code, which the acronym is HEART, H-E-A-R-T, every one of those, the words that come from that acronym have to do with people and relationships. They have zero to do with revenue or profitability or perseverance, even though that's kind of built into their DNA as well. Is, you've got to get stuff done, but you have to do it with humility, and you have to do it with empathy, which are the first 2 letters in their case. And we keep all these models and all these things that we keep looking at, we see the same thing. It's, you can do what you like, but until you have good people who are also smart, and most importantly also have humility and empathy, It's almost, I mean, you're almost unstoppable, right, as an organization.
Right. I agree. I mean, our core values are passion, humility, empathy, nimble, and excellence. Mm-hmm. And, because things change on a dime, you have to be able to react, to not throw your hands up and go, well, we can't do that. We have to figure out how to provide and solve problems. I do want to touch on, it's people, if you do what we say, I used to work at a place along my journey that was like, we shouldn't be embarrassed to say, like, put up on the wall that say profitability is like one of our top goals, right? And I said, in my experience, that if that's your only goal and you browbeat people to make sure they make more money, and then you treat your trades in a nefarious way, and your other one is integrity, that's not, your people will figure that out pretty quickly, and they know that you're disingenuous and you're creating platitudes. And so the biggest part of creating an environment where people love to come to work is it's self-fulfilling prophecy, and the revenue will come and the profit will come if you believe in people and you let them do their job without breaking their necks over how much more money can we make.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, as business owners and even people running nonprofits, as ironic as that might sound, every organization has to generate revenue to stay alive, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. But that's the result of all these other things that we're talking about. It's not the goal, right?
Right. It is an outcome that you hope for, right? And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we weren't focusing on the charging, and we had the revenue. We weren't focused on the profitability side of it as much as we should have been. So we made those tweaks. We still do great work, and we're a well-run company, but we actually put that toolkit to work. As we've talked about, the RevOps, we put that toolkit to work, and we are much better going forward, and we haven't lost the focus of our core, which is our people.
Right. Yeah, which is why in the RevOps model, the number one thing is aligning your people. And really what we're talking about here is exactly that. Is like, whichever organization you're running or involved in, how do you align your people? Because until you align your people, you're not going to be able to align your process. You won't be able to align your data. You won't be able to align your technology as successfully if you don't have an aligned team. And when I say team, I mean the overall team and then the teams within the team. That's a critical component of that. So yeah, very cool. Bob, so was there anything else that's come to mind as we've been chatting that you wanted to share? Because before I ask you the sort of final closing question.
No, I'm on this journey with you, and it's been a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. Bob, so we would like to end each episode with a tip from our guest, because again, as we talked about, your massive success didn't happen overnight. And you've learned a lot of things along the way that we're hoping by giving this tip, you will help a few folks take a few less missteps along the way, even though we know we're all going to make them. So what is the one tip you would give people listening and watching this episode around assessing? So what we call the model of RevOps for Dynamico is you have to, first of all, assess whatever the situation within your RevOps, your revenue operations. Then you have to align, as we've been talking about, align the people, align the processes, align the data, and then align the technology system. And when you do that, you accelerate. So it's assess, align, accelerate. So with that in mind, what is the tip that you have that you think will impact one of the 4 areas in RevOps, just to sort of bring it back to the RevOps Champions theme? So of course, one of the benefits of RevOps is revenue growth. But as we just talked about, that is the outcome. It's not what you focus on. Profitability, again, is one of the benefits, because when you have aligned people, processes, data, and technology, the efficiency just creates more profitability. But really, the biggest hidden benefits in many ways, but the reason you want to adopt a RevOps model is because of that customer experience, which of course, as we've talked about here again today, is very closely linked to your employee experience or happiness. So with that, Bob, what is your tip to the folks today?
At the risk of beating the same drum, is hire smart people that are kind. You can't teach kind. If somebody's ruthless, you can't teach them to change their stripes and be kind. So hire smart individuals who have kindness, focus on the people, and the rest will fall into place. You still have to hold folks accountable. It doesn't mean that just because you want to make it all fun and rainbows and butterflies, that we still have to do hard work and we still have to be smart and technical in what we do, no matter what business it is. So, I read a book, and a lot of the philosophies that we've talked about that I live pretty core to my being is a book called Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, who is the founder of Shake Shack, but Union Square Hospitality. And he calls it enlightened hospitality. And when you have enlightened hospitality, that's the spirit of running a business with that focus on people and your client second, and then really making sure that you have the technical expertise and you're hiring top talent. And if you create a place where people love to come to work and they feel valued and challenged, then you don't have to really compete on this war on talent. When you create a place where people are drawn to it like a magnet, that is a game changer. And so from my perspective, it starts with that you create this magnetic center that people are drawn to that is culture. And if you start there, I'm a firm believer that when you put the right people to work, that the rest will follow.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome way to wrap this up. And in fact, I was also reading something recently around the fact that the businesses who do get this right, which and unfortunately the numbers are still pretty low, it's only about 10 to 15% of all businesses have this as their goal. But those businesses, because of the talent shortage right now, those companies are going to attract all the best people from every other company where they're not happy. And those companies are going to absolutely rocket ship in the next 2 to 3 years because the talent shortage isn't going away anytime soon.
Right.
So if you're giving people an amazing, challenging place to go to work every day, your business will be more successful, way more successful than the average business in your industry, whatever industry you're in. So
sure.
Bob, thanks again so much for being with me today. I look forward to the next conversation and learning more from you. Have a great rest of your week and take care of that amazing family of yours and those good people at Gardner Builders.
Thank you, Brendon. I'm grateful to have had this opportunity. Have a great week.
Thanks. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you for checking out this episode of RevOps Champions. This show is powered by Dynamico, a HubSpot consulting firm helping businesses level up the technology systems that power their ability to scale. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow RevOps Champions wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or visit RevOpsChampions.com to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.